the first thing we need to do is decide how we're going to hold the glass. Now we have a series of cones with a machine, so it's purely a case of finding the appropriate size cone to hold the top of the glass, and then which is the best base plate to suit the shape of the glass. The cone is held by the drive spigot, and we need the Allen key just to locate that into place. The drive spigot has two pointed screws, and they align with the two holes on the back of the cone. The small faceplate fits onto the freewheeling spigot, which rests into the jaws. When placing the glass into the vise, loosen all the lock levers, open the vise, and then carefully tighten the glass into place, making sure that you've got it nice and central on the faceplate and the cone. Just give it a bit of tension and then lock off. We need to make sure that we're using the depth regulator with the white nose cone, which has the attached black pipe. To avoid excessive spray, just make sure you can't see the collet in the gap here. Just back it off. And then lock that in place with the screw here. Then you need to attach the water pipe. Just loosen the locking screw, put it through and fit it into the end. For glass, I prefer to use the composite diamond with the light touch or burnishing attachment. Remember, it's a left-hand thread to put it into the spindle. And then what I want to do is make sure that the diamond is only sticking out of the nose cone here about 3-4 millimeters. It's not critical, but just enough so you can see the cone and then a little bit of the shank as well. I'm going to use the Auto Z control, so I set the spindle lever lock to either position 2 or 1, so that not only have I got some float here at the base of the spindle, the whole spindle moves as well. So let's set up a simple job in the software. The glass is cylindrical, so I select that here. I've also held the glass, so the top of the glass is at the right, bottom of the glass is at the left. Now I can set the job up on the screen and rotate my text to orientate it in the same way, but that does mean it's a little bit harder to read and harder to set the kerning or the space between the characters. So at the bottom of the options here I've got output direction. If I click on the one that's relative to the way I'm holding the glass, it will make it easier for me because it'll set the rotation after I've applied my text and my design. So the diameter is 70 millimeters. The width, because I've rotated, the width is now the height, and I'm going to set 70 millimeters there, and then height is now width, and I'm going to set that to 60. Now the reason why I do that is when I've got the finished glass, finished engraved glass, I want to be able to see the engraving without having to rotate the glass at the same time. So let's click on OK to confirm. Draw text within a vector box will give me text centralized on the screen. in goes my text. Now I can choose single line or engraving fonts, which are great for speed, but with glass I tend to prefer the true type and then fill it to make it look much smoother. So I'm going to go for just Apple Chancery. There we go. Close that. So, quick look at that that text. The F and the T are actually touching, they're overlapping. So, edit text spacing and curve. If you click on this option, position your cursor between the characters you want to adjust. Now at the moment the arrows are internal. That means when I click on the mouse they get closer together. But if I hold the shift key, the arrows point outwards, and as I click I can open the text up. Now the rest of the kerning or spacing looks okay, but here we've got a descender, a letter with a tail, and an ascender, a higher character, in line with each other. So really I could do with opening the space up between these lines. Although it's mathematically correct, it does look a little bit squashed. So I can just drop it down like that. Now because we've manipulated that, let's just center our design again to the material. I'm happy with that. So if we use the switch icon here, it'll close down the drawing tabs and open up the tool paths. I'm going to click on quick engraving toolpath and then select the cutter from the list. Now I'm using a diamond. It's a 4.36mm shaft diamond with a 120 degree angle. Now when I've set this up I can choose the speed at which I'm going to engrave. Now I'm going to change that to, let's say, 20mm. There's the feed rate in the X and Y, and also 20mm in the plunge, which is the Z speed. Now you can run this actually at full speed at 60mm a second, so the engraving will be much faster. But running at a speed like this really guarantees the smoothness of the cut, regardless of the quality of the glass. Now the glass I'm using is fairly reasonable, so I could go at full speed. But on cheaper glass it tends to be very hard and tends to have hard spots within it. So if you run flat out, you may find when you've finished it's just missed part of the letter. So let's apply those changes. Click on OK. Now I want to fill that, so the fill option is ticked, and I can either choose to do an island fill, which is fast, or hatch, which gives an angled sideways strike. Now that looks much smoother in most cases. It might take a little bit longer, but will give a much better result. And we click on calculate. So that's filled that. Now I'm ready to send the job. So we've got to do the final setup on the machine.